everyone, it's Sam here at Designing Daydreams. Welcome back to my channel for another episode of crazy, creative, whatever this is. Today I want to talk to you about handwriting. Now, as a writer, handwriting is obviously something that's a little bit dear to my heart, although to be honest with you, my handwriting is so terrible that I actually use a computer. Once upon a time I used to do it by hand when I was at school, but anyway. Now, handwriting is something that I see a lot of people talking about. A lot of people, I hate my handwriting, it's terrible, and da-da-da-da. And I get you completely. I have been in the same boat myself, and I think it's... The reason I want to talk about this is that by the time you see this video, it will have been a year since the death of my grandmother. And I know that seems like a random thing to say, but she has been a massive influence in my life and actually also in my handwriting and the evolution of it. So I wanted to do this video as a bit of a memory to her and talk about journeys, and also hopefully how work with you on your own handwriting. Now, I've just got a grid book here. It's just an A4 grid book that I use for practicing my handwriting, and we're just going to go through a few examples of a few things, and yeah, we're going to talk about my handwriting and move from there. Now, it is a public holiday here in Australia today, so I've got both my kids home, and also I'm babysitting, or dog sitting I should say, my brother's little dog. So if you hear me shouting or if the camera starts swaying wildly, it's probably Gizmo in the window barking at something he shouldn't be barking at. Alright, so we're going to start off with my actual handwriting that I hate. Or rather what it used to look like. So you'll have to excuse me, I'm going to turn this on the page on an angle for a minute, and I'm just going to write how my writing has always looked. So, excuse the table wiggling, that's part of the problem. I can't spell. Okay, there it is. It's beautiful, right? Yeah. Now this is actually quite neat for me. When I just scribble, that's what it looks like. When I was in high school, I used to get all the time people saying to me about my handwriting. Teachers would complain they can't read my assignments, things like that, because I hold the pen extra special, as you can see, and I grip it really tight. You would have seen the table shaking, and that does cause a lot of problems. When I went to high school, printing was the thing. Having your letters just looking absolutely fabulous. No matter how I tried, I just couldn't do it. A lot of my friends were exceptional. They had exceptional printing handwriting, and that's as good as it gets for me. I tried really hard to keep it up, but over time my hand fatigues very quickly. It ends up looking like that. As a child, I used to be left-handed, and I believed for a long time that the solution to my problems was to go back to writing left-handed. And I did focus on that for a while, but it's so slow, and it's, I don't know that it's much neater. When I was in early primary school, my teacher forced me to change from left hand to right hand. Her favourite catchphrase was, little girls do not write with their left hand. Now, I'm actually younger than that statement makes me sound. And it was unusual for her to make that decision generationally. But if I was to go back to my grandmother's generation, that was quite normal. And she actually was sent home from school because she was left-handed, and she had to learn to write with her right hand before she was allowed to go back. So there you go, trivia. Anyway, over the years, I struggled. I had pages and pages of scroll in all my notebooks. And my grandmother's handwriting, I'm going to show it to you. This is her recipe book, which I was lucky enough to inherit when she passed. Look at it. Now, it's really well used, so it's spilled and splotched and stained, and it's got recipe cutouts just stuck in it, and sorry, Grandma, it's pretty gross. But her handwriting, like, look at that. Isn't it just a work of art? Now, she was equally good with her right hand and her left hand, this woman. She blew me away. And it was actually this book that I was looking at one day as a teenager and commenting on her handwriting and how much I loved it and how it was unfair to be me. And she said to me, why didn't I just change it? And I can remember just staring at her and being like, I can't just change my handwriting. And she was like, why not? And we had this sort of chat about it, and she explained that when she learnt to write originally, they were really strict on your actual writing. Like, it had to be beautiful. It had to be a work of art. I mean, obviously back then, no computers, no nothing. That's how they communicated, and it was meant to be gorgeous. So she said that they were given worksheets, they were given books to look at, they, you know, on the blackboard or whatever, and they had to practice and practice and practice until they changed their handwriting to suit all this beautiful scrolly style. So she suggested to me that if I didn't like my handwriting, I should go about changing it. And my response to that was, wow. And I can remember saying to her, what do you mean just change my handwriting? What do you mean just change it? How do I just change it? And she was like, well, it's pretty simple. She goes, find yourself a book, find yourself some lettering, find yourself some writing that you like, and change it. And I went home sort of thinking, well, okay. Now that year I was in high school and I received an award at school. I was a bit of a nerd, and I had an award. You can even see the book plate has a plaque in it. Year 11, 2001. And following her advice, I chose this book on calligraphy. Now, unfortunately for me, I'm a terrible free spirit, and I never could sit down and do all the millions of exercises that were in here. It's a great book, don't get me wrong, but it's got like step-by-step exercises on what you should do to make your writing exactly to this angle, to this. And I actually end up getting really dispirited because I couldn't make it perfect. But I get ahead. I went through and I fell in love with a lot of the flowing shapes of these letters and all their hangy bits and all their loopy bits, and I thought they were beautiful. So I made the decision to try and adopt some of these methods into my handwriting. So I'll show you what I did. I'm just going to use my ballpoint pen because it's here, and we'll talk about other pens in a minute. So the original A that I was doing was this, and I decided I wanted to change to that. So you can see in my normal handwriting that I have actually done that. I decided that instead of the letter B looking like this, I wanted it to look like that. And likewise the letter D, I decided to change to look like that. F was a bit tricky. Normally my F would look like this. I have also done them like that in the past, but I used to get told off at school because it looked like an S, apparently. This was no longer working for me. So I went with a sort of a loopier method. My Fs can be a little bit changey depending upon it. The M's, I went from this. I wanted to add a loop, and likewise with an N and with a H. Those sorts of things I decided to add to my handwriting on an everyday basis. These super curly bits up here turned out to be a little bit impractical. So what happened is that when I printed, I actually just cut them out and had something like that. So otherwise what I found happened was that I had a lot of complaints about all my loopies and no one being able to read. I still at the end of the day had pretty shocking writing, but I was happier with the loops. at the end of the day, I thought it looked a lot nicer to have those pretty things. And that required me, it did take a long time and a lot of conscious thought to go from this sort of thing, I can't even do it the other way now, to this sort of thing. But it did actually happen. And when I write now, that is just how it looks. So it's still a little bit messy, as you can see. My husband hates trying to read my shopping lists and stuff because it's either scribbly like this or full of loopy bits like that, and he gets really upset. Recently, actually as recently as a couple of weeks ago, you might have seen in my last video, I ordered this phone cover, and I really liked that letter F. So I have actually been practicing this F up here to try and add it to my repertoire. And there's also, in brush lettering, they do an R that looks kind of, I can't even do it. It's like a loopy looking thing. This one, oh my god, it's right there in front of me. I actually really like that, and I've been trying to learn how to do it, but every time I try, it sort of doesn't, yeah, I'm still working on it. But you can see, even now, I'm working to evolve my handwriting from blah to yay. Oh, yay does not have a letter E in it. Yeah, learn to spell. So that was the other thing I changed, is my letter S's. I decided I wanted this one, which, considering my name is Sam, meant that I now sign my name like this. And my husband constantly teases me that my name is Jam, which it's not. In following on from that, the letter J I find to be just something I've always struggled with. And I recently saw, I couldn't find where I saw it, but I've been doing it in my planner, so I grabbed my planner to show you last week. This is the first week I tried it out. You can see, oops, sorry, I just totally bashed the camera. You can see here I have experimented with the dot and without the dot, and I really liked that. So that basic form is to go with a loopy and a loopy and no, that's wrong. It's a see, I'm still learning. Nope, that's wrong too. Oh, I'm doing the swirl upside down. There you go. Yeah. So you can see it just takes a lot of practicing. You basically got to pick the letters that you hate. If you hate the letter E, where? Here we go. E. No. Maybe you want it to be something a little more fancy, swirly, loopy. What are you going to do? So you would go searching, look in your calligraphy books, look in your Pinterest or whatever, and you would find a letter E that works for you. And the one I usually do is like that. So yeah, I have to think about it really hard before I do it. Because otherwise you end up with all sorts of loopy bits going horribly, horribly wrong. So that is my basic first step. Now I'm going to flip the page here because I am running out of space. And we're going to keep working. The next thing I want to talk about is pens. I love a ballpoint pen. I love them. Hooray! Yay! But they do get me into some really bad habits. Gripping the pen super hard, pressing super hard on the paper. I could write on a sheet of paper and you could take off 5 sheets and still read what I've written. So I find pen choice does make a pretty big difference, and that's where my fancy pens come in. I've got 2 pencil cases that I use. This little one here has got in it a selection of brush pens. Here. It's got a couple of calligraphy markers. Here's another brush pen. Let's just put those there. I've got an eraser. I've got a white gel pen in here, which I don't really use, as you can see. I've got a mechanical pencil, and I have a set of fine liners in a variety of sizes. So they start off super, super thin and they range out to thicker. These ones are also archival quality, which basically means they're waterproof. So whatever I draw in these fine liners won't wash out if I decide to use a watercolor or if I spill my tea on it, which is probably more likely than getting the time to actually paint. And like I said, they come in a variety of thicknesses. So this is what I often use. Now, this pencil case here, which I believe you've seen before, the Fat Unicorn, has a collection of the Staedtler Tri-Plus fine liners in it, which I also really like. And I believe they're a 0.3 or a 0.2, which is on a line with these down here. Oh, I can't count. Look at that. And these obviously are just for writing in color, but they're not waterproof. However, I do really like the way they write. So I'll leave one of those out so that we can talk about it. So the pencil and the rubber I only use if I'm doing something super arty. And obviously the white is white. So these are fun, but to get the calligraphy effect, you have to hold the pen exactly right. Calligraphy relies upon you holding the pen at an angle to get the correct effect. And you're supposed to hold it at different angles for different fonts. And you're supposed to make a little grid with your thing to show you exactly how high you're supposed to write. I usually find that really restrictive because of the strange way that I hold the pen. I find it very difficult. And I tend to write at a 45-degree angle because that's just the easiest. And just so that you get an idea of what it would look like. I will quickly show you. And now I am by no means a calligraphy expert. So I find holding the pen at this sort of angle really tough for me, because you can already see my 45 degrees is no longer. I think it's got something to do with the strange way that I've held the pen. I actually do have proper calligraphy, like nib and dipping inks and everything like that, which I bought not long after I got that book that I just showed you. But I pretty much gave up because I just could not master holding my pen the way I hold it, the angles of the pen to get it to work properly for me. But I do have those, and sometimes I use them. The brush markers have been a revelation for me. They really have. These two are the same. They're the Pentel Sign Touch brush marker. Now these come in lots of different colors. And these ones are the Tombow Fudenosuke brush ones. And they are slightly different. This one here, I don't know if you can tell, is actually a navy blue outer shell. And it's what they classify as a hard tip. So if I was to write with it, there we go, I'll write hard. It's stiff, basically, which means it's more difficult to get the really thick, thin contrast. You have to be super, super classy or writing really small. So I'm still practicing with this one. The Pentel Sign is the first brush pen I ever bought, and it took me quite a while to get used to it. And I actually think it is somewhere in between the two. I ended up buying the Fudenosuke because I could see the possibilities of brush markers, but I was really struggling to fall in love with this Pentel one. It bleeds a little bit, not terribly, but I found that it was harder to get that thick, thin contrast. With using a brush pen, the trick to it is that you have to press harder when you want it to be fat and lighter when you want it to be skinny, which sounds really simple. But for somebody like me who's used to jamming the pen as hard as she can onto the paper her entire life, that's actually not that simple. Now this is the soft, and it's a lot more forgiving. It gives a similar line to the Pentel one. And as you can see, my thin strokes are not great. So it gives a similar finish to the Pentel one. It doesn't bleed. I haven't had it bleed yet. And I have found it, when I first got the Pentel one, it was really stiff, and I had to kind of smush it on the paper as I was using it super hard. For me to say that, that's hard. Whereas the Pentel, the Tombow Fudenosuke soft one was super squishy to start. And you can see here the difference between the hard and the soft already. These fine liners that I was talking about before, I usually use a 3. And this is where we start talking about actual handwriting, kids. I found that with a fine liner, and I'm sorry I have to turn my page on the angle again just for a minute, it was easier for me to write softly. And I discovered that when I was not wasting my time and energy jamming my pen into the page, it was a lot easier for me to achieve a neater, happier, more readable script. So the 3 is what I generally write in because I think that's the most, what can I say, middle ground, average, good size. I'll use a 2 if I really want to. They're very similar, but you can see that they are thinner. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I just prefer the slightly fatter look. Depending on what I'm doing. If I want, obviously if I'm writing something really large, I'll experiment with the variations. These Staedtler Tri-Plus fine liners, I think, are equivalent to a 3, which I was just using. Obviously, the difference here is that these come in beautiful colors. That one's a very pale. I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see that on the camera. Pale pink probably wasn't the best choice. So what else have I got in here that's not quite so... Here we are. This is like a slate blue colour. So it's also quite pale against this blue grid. Can you see it? I think you can. Alright, so the basic idea here was that I now have no excuses but to force myself to write as prettily as I can. And that is a challenge that I set myself on a daily basis, on a note-by-note basis, on an everything I write. I am constantly pushing myself to have handwriting that I'm happy with, handwriting that I enjoy. I love reading handwritten quotes. I love reading beautiful illuminated lettering. I love going over old medieval transcripts and seeing the things that they used to write with their beautiful, beautiful handwriting. And it was something that I really, really, really wanted to be able to have for myself, I guess. For no other reason than to say that I could, that my handwriting was beautiful too. Rather than being one of those people who just felt there's no hope for me. My handwriting is so terrible and so ugly that there is just absolutely nothing I can do to change it. Absolutely nothing that I can do to make it a thing that I like. And yeah, thanks to some advice from my beautiful grandmother, when I was, 2011, I would have been, no, sorry, 2001, not 2011, 2001, I would have been about 17. So thanks to her advice back then, and in case you're wondering, now I'm 32. So that's more than half, more than half my life? I'm terrible at maths. Anyway, it's a lot of years. that I've been working, and it's an evolution that never stops. But I can promise you that if you practice really hard, you can go from gross to pretty. You can. You totally can. I promise you that you can. You've seen it. For people who really want italic handwriting, just tilt your page. Like, honestly. When I found out that trick, I was just like, really? It's that simple? I mean, like, if I turn it up this way, where's my black? Because that shows up the best. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Here it is. Up this way, if I do it, it's going to be straight. And here it is, my straight writing. And if I turn my page a bit, it goes on an angle. And it's only slight, but it's enough for me. Because, I mean, if you go too far, you're going to end up with your writing that is lying down. And that actually makes it a lot more difficult to write it, to read it, to manage it. So I like a slight angle when I write, which is why when I work, particularly with the fine liners, I will often just angle it a little bit. But you don't have to. There's nothing wrong with the good old up and down. And I try and work with my brush pens with the page up and down because it's just easier to see. A grid book is also a good way to do that. I'm working on not using the grid book. I mean, I've done most of my life, I've actually not used a grid book. Usually I would just use a blank sketchbook. But I have this book and I really like the pale blue lines in the grid. So I am actually trying to teach myself to use a grid book, which is funny because that's where a lot of people start. So anyway, that is it. I mean, eventually as you become more confident with it, I made myself a deal that I wanted my planner to reflect my writing practice. So this, for example, is next week's spread in the making. You can see I've done a bit of decorating up here with my, this was done with the Fuzeno Suke Soft. I wrote this up here. Then the accents all around the edge I did with my 3 fine liner. And this down here, my weekly to-do list, I wrote also here. This down here, the heading was done with the soft. The border and the smaller labels were done with the hard. And to be honest with you, I actually prefer these pens already a lot more than the Pentel one. Sorry, Pentel. Sorry. I do love this pen, don't get me wrong, and I'll continue to use it, but these ones are just much better. And if I had to choose between them, after only owning these for like 3 days, I'm going to go with these. So this spread I actually did because I was learning to use them. Now this blank space here is something I'll fill in throughout the week. I actually really like trying to do like a quote a week. You can see here I wrote choose joy, which is something that I've been writing a lot lately. And the week before I had, I think it was let's make glass. Yeah. Which I did those with the Pentel. That was with the Pentel. And so was this. And this is with the Tombow. So as you can see, unless I told you they were different, you probably wouldn't notice. This one I did based around the stickers. These are stickers that I sell in my Etsy store, the dinosaurs. And I desperately wanted to use them because I was really proud of them. I loved them so much. So I drew the scenery and wrote around it. And then for this layout here, I really wanted to go back to basics and just focus on the writing. So I just had a couple of stickers there. And yeah, these ones are from my store. And these ones are Fox and Cactus, in case anybody is wondering. Fox and Cactus, Fox and Cactus. She's great. Emma. Hi, Emma. Hi. So yeah, you can evolve your handwriting. You see here I write in a ballpoint and it's more of a printed style, and here it's more scripted. It really depends on what you want to do and where you want to go with it. So wow, this video's ended up a lot longer than I thought it would, but I hope that you enjoyed that little walkthrough of my handwriting. Now I'm going to go back to, just before we say goodbye, this at the start. This was done just with these fine liners when I first got them. So all I did was I took different thicknesses to write the different words, and it is a combination of just my scripted writing with a little bit of experiment here, more of just my writing. I added a few little curls. You can see what I was talking about my Fs, which I do kind of like those, but I am trying to practice the other ones as well, just so I've got options, I guess. And it is just as simple as everything that you write, whether it's something pretty, whether it's a birthday card, whether it's a shopping list, whether it's just a post-it note reminder. If you want to change your writing, change it. Pick something that you like and do it every time that you write it down. Think about it, and eventually, I promise you, because I've done it myself, eventually it will become second nature, and before you know it, you will be able to move from scrappy scribble to something that makes you happy, something that at the end of the day you look and you see, ta-da, wow. All right, so that is the end of my video for today. I hope that you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. I have had a lot of requests to do things like a what's in my pencil case and stuff like that. You've just seen it. It's not very interesting. I keep pens in my pencil case. So there is that. But yeah, this one is for my grandma. Really, she was the inspiration for a lot in my life. We were very close. I loved her very much. I miss her very much every day. And it's funny, until I started thinking about my handwriting and about people talking about hating their handwriting, I had almost forgotten that she is the reason that my handwriting is now different. She has always been somebody who would say to me, if you don't like it, Samantha, change it. And you know what? I think that's fabulous advice to apply to life in general. She was a fabulous lady, and I hope that I can pass her lessons on to you if you don't like your handwriting, to encourage you to go out and find something that you like and to make it better. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.